joining us for this Avengers Assemble webinar focused on recruiting your superhero team of volunteers. My name is Sarah Berry, and I am YSA's Grants Manager. And before we get started, I actually just want to remind you that we are also hosting a Twitter chat during this webinar, and you can follow that by using the hashtag GYSD, as you can see on the main screen here. So feel free to use this chat as a place to ask questions, maybe even answer questions, or add any input that you might have. And you can find us on Twitter at Youth Service. And we actually recommend using Tweet Chat as a simpler way to follow the Twitter chat and ask questions. So we hope that you do that. Tonight we're actually going to hear from 3 experts, all of whom have experience recruiting their peers, mentors, and other community members for their service projects. From each of their and personal anecdotes, we hope that you will walk away from this webinar with some ideas for how to recruit other people to help you with your own project or program. Hopefully you'll learn how to recruit volunteers for one-time events as well as longer-term service events at the same time. We will hear from Simone Bernstein, the founder of Volun Nation, Katie Stagliano, founder of Katie's Crafts, and Brenna McCall, Program Director at North Carolina Literacy Corps. Before I pass it on over to Simone, our first panelist, I just want to quickly go over some key and essential questions that you should probably ask yourself before you even get started on recruiting for your project. I know that these are questions that some of our panelists will address on their section of the slides, but I just wanted to give you some initial thoughts and things to think about. So first, what do you need help with? That's definitely the #1 question you want to ask yourself. Are they long-term tasks, or are they more one-time, quick and easy tasks, or is it a little bit of a mixture of both? Do you need someone with special skills for any certain tasks? And if so, how do you figure out where to find these people with those specific skills? Who could help you? Is it a wide variety of people, or do you need specific people to help you out? How many volunteers do you need? That's definitely important as well. And I always say it's better to overestimate rather than underestimate the amount of volunteers you need, but it's definitely something to consider before you even get started recruiting. And lastly, do you need any adults to supervise younger volunteers? You're going to be busy with a lot of other tasks during your program, during your project, so definitely something to think about if you need adult supervisors to look after some of the younger volunteers while you're not able to do so. So those are just some of the quick initial questions that I urge you to think about before you even get started. And now I'm going to introduce Simone, and then I'm going to pass it off to her so that she can share her experiences and some of her best practices with us. So Simone Bernstein is the co-founder of Volun Nation. She was named in the 2013 Glamour Top 10 College Women, 2010 L'Oreal Paris Women of Worth, January 2011 Huffington Post Person of the Day, and she was also listed on the 2012 Forbes 30 Under 30 list, among other things. She also serves on the YSA Board of Directors, and she's currently a National Child Awareness Month Youth Ambassador. She has some really great experiences to share, so Simone, I'm going to pass it off to you.
Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate that. I'm excited to be on the webinar today to speak with you guys about my recruitment strategies that we've utilized throughout the exposure and growth of Volun Nation. If you have any questions for me, definitely post them on the Twitter chat. I'm a little obsessed with tweeting, as one might say, but I'd be happy to answer any of your questions or things that you might be thinking about doing for your service project. So I am the co-founder of Volun Nation, which is a national nonprofit organization that helps young people find volunteer opportunities in their communities. We have a database of more than 8,100 volunteer opportunities, grants, scholarships, and resources. So if you go to our site, you can search by zip code, age, and area of interest, as well as finding numerous resources to complete your service project and find scholarships to help you as a service leader obtain your goals and get a great scholarship for your education. We complete 200+ service projects every year throughout the United States with an amazing group of more than 300 ambassadors. And like I said, we are a little obsessed with tweeting as well as utilizing other social media sites, but you can find us on Twitter at Volun Nation. So how to recruit volunteers? It's amazing how many young people are on social media or engaged in the internet. 93% of teenagers are online. So find ways to engage students by utilizing Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Vine, and a variety of other different social media avenues to make sure that you're finding young people that are interested in your activities and finding peers that can help along the way. Also, give students a voice. Make service exciting and accessible to youth. During the planning process for your service project, have a youth advisory council and help them make decisions. Allow them to decide what to do for your project, give advice, and provide the tools and resources that you guys need to be able to grow your project. Also, create specific roles and responsibilities for youth. Give every young person a task. Make them feel like you want them there, whether they're 3 years old or whether they're 17. You want to make sure they feel involved and feel like they have a role in the service project. So recruiting influential people to volunteer is extremely important for a service project. You want to make sure that you're not only telling people in your community that can come out and volunteer, but also those in the community that can be role models for young people. So how to do this? How do you get the mayor involved or the Board of Education or administration or celebrities in your local community? Well, remember that first impressions are always important. So not only can you make a phone call or write an email, but go into their office and to schedule a meeting and see if they're available to give you at least 5 to 10 minutes of their time to tell them about what you're doing and why it's important for the community. For example, we were in North Carolina putting on a service project in Chapel Hill, and we invited the North Carolina basketball team. The Tar Heels are a huge team, and it's exciting to be able to get them involved. And they decided to come, and we had Marcus Page involved in the activity where youth on the autism spectrum were given the chance to play basketball. It was amazing to have a local celebrity there who will most likely be recruited for the NBA. It was a great opportunity for not only our volunteers, but also for the youth that were attending the clinic. Always ask for help. People can always turn you down and say no, but it can't hurt to ask. It's so important to be able to make that initial ask and send that email and the phone call to follow up with them if they don't return any of your calls or your responses. Have young people make the call or go to the office. We found from our experiences that young people do the best. They're excited and energized about the projects, and we found that those local celebrities in the community seem to be more likely to say yes. It's harder to turn down a young person coming into the office and asking for help. Help the young person develop an elevator pitch, though. It's really important that you allow them to understand the service project itself and help them develop a 30-second to 1 minute pitch to be able to allow them to do their best when they go into the office and ask. Give the local celebrity a role at the event. You want to make sure that they have a specific responsibility while they're attending, whether that's making a speech or whether that's giving out tools and supplies to volunteers, or whether that's walking around and smiling and just being there and showing their interest in the cause. You really want to make sure that they feel important and they understand how much you appreciate them. If the local celebrity can't attend the event, ask them for something else. You never want to turn away and move on. See if they can create a short video message or even create a letter of support. These can always be helpful in recruiting volunteers and also getting the momentum behind your event. Here are some general tips for recruiting volunteers. So recruitment on your social media pages. We advise you to post about your event at least once a day on Twitter. We find that people love to know what's going on in their community and aren't always on Twitter, so post daily about what you're doing and what you need. On Facebook, we think you should post about 2 times a week. You don't want to overwhelm your followers, so 2 times a week seems to be the best way to promote the event that you're planning on doing. Also use the GYSD hashtag. It's great to learn from others in the community and others worldwide to learn about their projects and see how they're recruiting volunteers, and also learn ways in which you can partner with them. Send reminder emails to your volunteers. You always want to make sure that you send reminder emails at least 1 week in advance and then 2 days before your event to show them the importance of coming on time and being there and the appreciation that you have for them. Promote the opportunity in community and high school newspapers. This is one thing that people always forget. They don't realize the importance of a high school newspaper. Contact a local high school in your community and see if they have a paper or see if they have a bulletin, and try to get a story or an introductory event post in their newspaper so that high school students who are involved in National Honor Society or involved in other community organizations may attend due to the fact that they need service hours. Also, look at online local calendars. There are over 100 local calendars in the St. Louis, Missouri area alone, so it's amazing to see how much of an impact you can make when you just make a free post online to show people about your event. Also, it may seem rather obvious, but it is important. Post flyers at cafes and community centers. There's nothing against a paper flyer, and it's extremely important because people do look at them and people see what's going on in their community, and a service project is a great way for people to come together and support a cause. And then, of course, show appreciation. You want to say thank you. Nothing means more than a simple thank you, whether it's a note or whether it's a message on your Twitter or your Facebook account after the event. You really want to show people why you care and why you hope they'll come and help you volunteer again in the future. Thanks again. If you have any questions for me, like I said, feel free to post them on social media. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Simone. I know that I definitely learned a lot from you, and hopefully everyone else did too. And speaking of hashtag GYSD, everyone, just a reminder that we are still doing our Twitter chat, so feel free to chime in, ask any questions. We have our staff here ready to answer questions, and I know the panelists will be joining in as well. So just a side note on that, but thanks again, Simone. Now I'm going to introduce to you Katie Stagliano. Katie is 16 years old, and she's the founder and chief executive gardener of Katie's Crafts, which is a not-for-profit organization with the mission to start and maintain vegetable gardens of all sizes and then donate the harvest to help feed people in need. She also assists and inspires others to do the same and to get involved. She's been working to end hunger, one vegetable garden at a time, for 7 years, and there are currently 80 Katie's Crafts gardens growing across the country, which I find really, really impressive. So, Katie, I am going to pass it off to you.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's such an honor to be here, and I hope that you find this helpful. If you have any questions, definitely feel free to ask. So one of the first things that is very important to do when recruiting volunteers is to create a plan. It's important to know what you want your volunteers to accomplish and what kind of tasks are going to be involved in your project. It's important to break down the tasks as well. For example, at our Katie's Crafts dinners that we do, we break up the kids into groups for people who will be working in the front of the house at the dinner, people who will be setting the table, greeting the guests, getting drinks, and then people who will be working in the kitchen, cutting and chopping vegetables, and washing and cooking. So that way everyone has an assigned task and job and knows where they need to be and what they need to be doing at all times. So that way it can be helpful to everybody else so that they know what they're doing and it doesn't cause chaos. Also, it's important to know how many volunteers that you need. And having too many volunteers, we found at our Katie's Crafts dinners, can be kind of hard for us because it causes a lot of chaos. People don't know where they're going, and they keep asking people for help, and it just creates a little bit of chaos. And believe it or not, it takes longer for us to figure out what we're doing. So have a number of volunteers that you want to have. Also, is there an age requirement? Do you need parents to attend with their kids to watch them? I know that's very important if you can't be watching everybody at once. And prior to setting a date, you might want to check calendars, whether that be the school calendar or things going on in your community. Sometimes I found that we'll have 10 or 15 volunteers who don't show up to a work day, and that is because there might be another event going on in the community that they have to attend. Another important thing is how to ask. Being passionate is really important, and also explaining your cause. I found that when I'm asking for volunteers to come out and help me in the garden, that people are more likely to come and help if instead of telling them, oh, it's going to be garden work day, we're going to be planting some, weeding in the garden, raking, dealing with the compost bin, if I tell them we're going to be planting and harvesting some vegetables as well, and then these vegetables are going to be brought to families in need at cancer centers, soup kitchens, and we have a family coming to our house to pick up a basket of fresh vegetables so that they can have something for dinner tonight. Telling a story is something that definitely draws volunteers in. Also, volunteers really like it when you're detailed, and they want to know, they're going to ask you a lot of questions if you don't provide them on the invitation or on the email, however you may be asking for volunteers. So it's important to talk about if there's an age limit, if you want kids, if you want adults to come and supervise and help, the teens, what kind of project this is. Definitely specify what your Global Youth Service Day project is and where it will be taking place. If your project is taking place at a school, it's also important to say maybe what room it's in or things like that so people don't get lost, providing directions and a point of reference for some people who might not know the area as well. Talking about why you're hosting the project. That way you can help draw more people in and they can better explain what they're going to be doing, and a date and time. If this event is an outdoor event, it's important to explain if you have a backup plan in case of bad weather. I know sometimes we might be working at the garden and it'll start to rain unexpectedly or a storm will come, and it's always important for us to tell the parents who are dropping their kids off, if this happens, this is where we're going, so they know what's going to be happening in case of bad weather. Who to ask is another very important thing. Who is your project helping? Sometimes the families that are benefiting from this project may want to help and come out and help in the garden. I found that a lot of the people that receive vegetables from Katie's Crops are really excited about coming out and working in the garden and helping to provide for themselves and for others who will be receiving the fresh vegetables. Also, schools are really great. My school in particular has been amazing, and I find that nearly all the grades can come out to the garden we have at our school and help us. We can have kindergartners come out and plant, and then we can have high schoolers do some of the heavy lifting, and middle schoolers deal with compost. So there's something for everyone, and schools are a really great way to find volunteers. Also, we found religious groups and youth groups have been great, and they all get along together amazingly and are really excited to come work. Boys and girls clubs and sports teams are another great place to find volunteers. Also a tip, if you have an ongoing service project, we found it's great to create a list of volunteers, have them sign in when they get to the project, put their email, their phone number, things like that, so you can keep in contact with them, because if you know they're great volunteers, you definitely want to keep having them come back and work on the project with you because you know you can trust them and rely on them. And so that's something that's been really helpful for us, and we constantly use when finding volunteers for garden work days or for our Katie's Crops dinners. Some additional tips are to send a reminder to the volunteers at least 2 days before the project. This way, if there's something going on and one of the volunteers has to cancel or can no longer come, then you can find someone to replace them so you're not short any volunteers for your project. Also, continue to update your volunteers on the impact of their project that they participated in. We found that if you tell the volunteers where the fresh vegetables went after the garden or how many people they helped to feed at the dinner, they'll be more likely to want to come back and help again because they know that your project is truly helping to make a difference. Also, thank you notes are very important. You can never say thank you enough, especially to someone who's donated time to come help you work on your project and make your dream come true. So whether you send a thank you note to the individual volunteers. Sometimes when we're working with a group, we send a thank you poster, and we include pictures and just a big thank you to the organization and everyone who came out to help. And this is really great for the organization because they can put it up in their headquarters and in their office buildings as a reminder of the service project that they participated in and the difference that they made. We found that if you send thank you notes to people, they're a lot more invested and they feel very appreciated for their time and their effort. So we definitely remember to do that every time that we have someone come out and volunteer. And I hope that this was helpful. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. So much for having me on.
Awesome. So much, Katie. I really appreciate it. And just as a side note, we at the YSA office do have a big post from Katie thanking us for things that we've done. So definitely something to think about, definitely important. People do keep those things. And I see her pictures almost every day at the office. So definitely something great to think about. So thanks, Katie. Now on to our last, but certainly not least presenter of the evening, Brenna McCall. And just a brief introduction to Brenna. After earning her BA in Sociology at Asheville, she served 2 years in AmeriCorps' Project Power, as a volunteer coordinator and an after-school coordinator. Following her service year, she spent a year in Spain gaining fluency in the Spanish language while also teaching English. And then upon her return to the U.S., she worked at the Carolina Mountain Land Conservancy as the program coordinator for conservation-based AmeriCorps program. In the summer of 2014, Carolina, and she is now the director of Literacy Corps, which is literacy-focused AmeriCorps with members serving across North Carolina. Also a member of the Young Nonprofit Professional, and she holds a Duke certification in nonprofit. I'm sure that her experiences, as well as Simone's and Katie's, will teach us a thing or two. So Brenna, I am going to pass it off to you now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So the AmeriCorps project that I'm running is managed through SCALE. It's the Student Coalition for Action in Literacy Education. And most of the groups that we serve are college-age groups. But our AmeriCorps members are all ages, and we have members serving all across North Carolina. So we'll actually be organizing 10 different GYSD events in different regions. This is actually my first year with doing a GYSD project, but I've done a lot of other volunteer recruitment for National Service Days as well as organizational volunteer recruitment. I don't think I'm able to go through the slides, but could you click to the next one?
Yep, absolutely.
Thanks. So I like to ask our members when they're recruiting volunteers to kind of think about the reasons why they like to volunteer, what motivates them. So there's a lot of reasons why people volunteer. They want to affect change in their community. Maybe they want to acquire some new skills, maybe that will help them in their career or a good thing to add to their resume. And volunteering is also a great way to meet new people and be civically engaged. And so another good question to ask, which we've kind of talked about a little bit, but why does your organization need volunteers, and why would you want to have diverse volunteers? And one reason is having the value of fresh perspectives. And this is especially helpful to involve your volunteers in the planning stages. Having those perspectives and fresh ideas can be really helpful. You also are able to create an inclusive environment. Diverse volunteers provides a bridge between your organization and the community at large. And you also can encourage people from different backgrounds to use your services. You're increasing who is talking about your organization, and so it's a great way to provide outreach for your organization. And when you're thinking about recruiting, there can be some challenges, maybe reasons why people aren't able to volunteer. We often hear people say that they'd like to volunteer, but they just can't. There's many reasons why people may feel unable to volunteer, so we definitely want to avoid any kind of exclusion and be aware of these kinds of barriers when we're recruiting. And some of those barriers include language barriers, additionally technology. Only posting online can limit the amount of people that you're reaching out to, or having an application online for someone that may not have internet access at home could potentially be a barrier. Also, the way you write your volunteer recruitment, your descriptions, making sure that you're not using too many technical terms that may make people feel unqualified. You also want to consider location. Can you make your volunteer location accessible by public transportation or close enough to a community that someone can walk to? So when you're thinking about being inclusive, think about the types of advertisements that you have. You want to have multiple types. So online is definitely a great way to reach people, but also flyers, going face-to-face with people, talking in classes, going into communities, so multiple layers. Also accessibility, again, transportation. Can you make volunteer opportunities in various locations that more people can reach to if they don't have a car, or if you're working in a rural area where there's not public transportation? And also, you want to have a lot of time variety. You can have activities taking place at different days so that if someone is working or if they're in school or if they're in night classes, there's different times, evenings and weekends in which they can volunteer. So some questions that you can ask yourself to check in about the diversity of your volunteers. In your images for your flyers, are you projecting a welcoming and inclusive image on your recruitment materials? Have you explored your own perceptions and talked with staff regarding race and cultural diversity? We definitely don't want to make assumptions that certain groups don't want to volunteer just because they aren't normally represented. Do we work in coalition with groups that predominantly include people of color, also age, gender, cultural and physical ability diversity? And have we researched the demographic makeup of our community? So I'd like to share with you a story about one of our AmeriCorps members. She serves at the Durham Literacy Center, and she's been working with DLC to provide more opportunities for youth with disabilities to volunteer. And one of the great partners with them has been working with the Autism Society. After talking with the Autism Society, they strategized together to create some adaptive volunteer activities that children with autism can do on their own or supervised by their caretakers. So this is a great way to partner and include populations that are traditionally underserved and underutilized. So I also included some resources here from Scale and also from Idealist. These are just helpful in recruiting and volunteer management, just kind of a step-by-step planning. And if you have any additional questions, I am available on Twitter or through email. If you will share our emails at the end, that would be great. And thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Brenna, and thank you as well to Katie and Simone. I know I speak for myself, but I hopefully speak for the rest of us in saying that, it was great to hear from all of you, and, I took a lot away from all that you said in terms of recruiting volunteers. So thank you so much to all three of you. And now that we have heard from the experts, I hope that you can take what you've learned and apply it to your own projects. I know that there's a variety of projects from all of those of you who are listening in. So, let's ensure that take what we've learned for our own projects, and whether you're preparing for GYSD or for a project during another time of year, some of these best practices and key tips that our presenters shared with us today are really key in helping you find others who are interested in not only joining your cause, but working with you on your specific project as well. So just some next steps in terms of things to look out for coming from YSA specifically. Remember that GYSD is coming up. It's this April, April 17th through the 19th. So be sure to mark your calendar, start planning your events, start recruiting your volunteers, use what you've learned today, and make sure that you're prepared to have your Global Youth Services. And as you can see here as well, these are the dates for the upcoming webinars. So we'll have a webinar on February 11th, as well as March 11th and April. Those will be the webinars leading us up all the way to GYSD. Hopefully you guys can mark your calendars and join us for these upcoming webinars. I just wanted to share with you some of our resources that YSA offers that might help think further about recruiting. Also some next project that will come after. So please just look at our website, www.ys.com. We have a ton of different resources for you to use. Hopefully you can take what you've learned, as well as our resources to help you recruit volunteers and plan your project, including or GYSD or any other projects that you have coming up. So, and lastly, I just want to say, be sure to share your story with us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and I know that our presenters shared that with you as well. So feel free to share your story with us. Let us know what you're up to. Let us absolutely keep checking. We'd love to see how you're doing. So be sure to share your story with us from now to afterwards. We'd love to. And with that, I just want to thank you all so much for joining us tonight. A special thanks to Brenna, Katie, and Simone. As I mentioned, we all learned a ton from you tonight, and hopefully we'll take these pieces of information and go forth with our project. So for any questions that were either here on the webinar, feel free to personally reach out to me or just browse our website for resources and thanks. See you for our webinar next month. Thanks again.